to continue learning a little bit about genetics and heredity. Let's first by reviewing what we have already learned about homozygous and heterozygous. Homozygous dominant means that a chromosome carries 2 copies of the same dominant allele, and this would be shown with 2 capital letters. Homozygous recessive would carry 2 copies of the same recessive allele and would be demonstrated with 2 lowercase letters. And heterozygous carries 2 different alleles, showing 2 different traits. And this is characterized by using a capital letter and a lowercase letter. You can also see an example of this to the picture at the right of your screen. Okay, this is a Punnett square. And using a Punnett square, we can figure out what a child's phenotype will be. A phenotype is the physical appearance of a child. It also helps us understand the probability of a child's genotype. A genotype is what is written on a child's genes. Now, we can always see a phenotype, but we cannot necessarily determine what a phenotype looks like just by looking at a person. So here's a picture of a Punnett square. A Punnett square is a diagram used by geneticists to determine the probability or chance of an offspring having a particular phenotype. If the capital A represents red flowers and the lowercase a represents green flowers, what are the chances of the flowers being green? If you said 50%, you would be correct. A flower can only be green if it has 2 recessive traits. This probability will always be expressed in a percentage. Okay, so a Punnett square examines just one of many genes that get passed on during sexual reproduction. It also shows possible ways that the offspring could inherit the gene from its 2 parents. Let's look at this for example. Let's say both parents have brown eyes, but each parent is a carrier for a recessive trait of blue eyes. What is the probability that their child will have brown eyes? What is the probability that their child will have blue eyes? If you said that the probability for their child to have brown eyes is 75%, that would be correct. The probability of one of their children having blue eyes is 25%. So let's work on creating our own Punnett square. Get out a sheet of paper and draw a box with 4 squares. Leave room at the top and the side of the square. Choose a letter to represent your genes, 1 capital letter and 1 lowercase letter. These letters do need to be the same letter of the alphabet. Don't choose an A and a B, for example. You can choose a capital A and a lowercase a capital B and a lowercase b, or in this case, a capital T and a lowercase t. Capital letter will of course represent the dominant gene, and the lowercase letter will represent the recessive gene. So in this case, we're going to use capital T for a tall gene and lowercase t for a short gene. Let's say that you have a short father, okay? Short is recessive trait, so he will have to have 2 small t's or 2 recessive traits alleles in order to express the recessive trait. Now, your mom is tall, so she would at least have to have a tall T somewhere. But let's pretend that she's heterozygous and has a tall trait and a short trait in her alleles. Okay, let's solve this Punnett square. The T's on the top, you move down. The T's on the side, you move to the right. So let's fill the boxes with the genotype combinations and then figure out the percentage for each box. After you bring the T's from the top down and the T's from the left over to the right, what percentage of children are going to be tall? What percentage of children are going to be short? Pause this video and take some time to solve this Punnett square, and then see if you are correct. Okay, If you bring the small t's from the top down, you should have at least one t in every box. If you take the capital T from the left and bring it over to the right, you should have a capital T in 2 of the boxes. Then the lower t from mom's side will also come over, and you will have an extra lower t in 2 of the boxes. So, what percentage of the children are going to be tall? If you said 50%, that would be correct, because 25% plus 25% in the boxes that have capital T equals 50. And what percentage of children are going to be short? Well, remember, you must have 2 recessive traits in order for that recessive trait to show. So in this case, the percentage of children who are short is 50. Now, on this PowerPoint, we didn't use a tall T for tall and S for short because that would show 2 different genes, which code for 2 different traits. A genotype contains 2 codes for the same trait, so we use 2 forms of the same letter. Let's practice some more. Let's pretend the father is homozygous dominant. This means he will have 2 capital S's. Let's pretend the mother is homozygous recessive. This will be shown by 2 lowercase s's. If capital S is freckles and lowercase s is no freckles, what percentage of children will have freckles? If you said 100%, you would be correct, because every single box has a capital S in it. Okay, let's practice again. Both parents are heterozygous for black hair. This means they will each be represented by a large letter, a capital letter, and a lowercase letter. If a capital B equals black hair and a lowercase b equals blonde hair, what percent of children will have black hair? If you said 75%, that would be correct. Please check your work with the diagram to the right of the screen. Here we go again. A father is heterozygous for dimples. Heterozygous means that each letter will be different, so remember, you'll have a capital letter and a lowercase letter. And mother is homozygous recessive for no dimples. Because it's homozygous recessive, you will have 2 lowercase letters. If a D equals dimples and a lowercase d equals no dimples, complete the square and determine what percent of children will have dimples. Be sure to pause this video and work out the Punnett square on your own. Okay, now if you were to complete this on your own, father would have a big D over the top left box and a little d over the top right box. The mother would have a small d beside each of the left boxes. Okay, and as far as dimples, well, 50% of the children would have dimples. So, before we go, do you understand what genetics is? Can you define genetics? Do you understand how a Punnett square works? Can you understand and explain how a Punnett square is used to describe the genetic relationship between a parent and offspring? This is something that you will need to complete for your test. You also have a worksheet today that will help you complete this understanding. Hope you have an awesome day.